All right, we are live.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, I'm done. You can take it forward.
All right. Hey, folks. Welcome to this new course at Mon School. This is Iterators and Generators in JavaScript. But before we begin, I'd like to show you an example. I'd like to show what the problem is and what we're trying to solve. So over here, okay, this is a really cool example that I've borrowed from Luciano at JS Nation. You should definitely check out his book on Node.js design patterns. I've loved it and you'll love it too. So this is a log file that we are creating. We want to parse over JSON data. Consider this as a log, error log that will show whether the user has been successfully authenticated or not. I have two log files. One is called data.json and one is called use.json. The data.json file has about 6 entries, and the use.json has about 10 million entries. All right. So this could be a log file from any service, say an auth0 logger that provides logging for debugging purposes, or any JSON data for that matter. Now, what we want to do is we want to filter out all the entries where the error is an auth error. We want to show the usernames, the customer IDs for all such entries. All right. So if I try to run this file, if I try to run this file, okay, I see the customer ID of such users where the error is an auth error. But what happens if I try to do this on a huge data, the huge data JSON? I'll run that again. I'll run that again, and it says range error, invalid string length. Can someone in the chat box identify what the problem is? Can someone say what the problem is over here? Well, it says that problem is at json.stringify, but I really want to use the stringify function. There's a glaring error. There's a glaring error under it, and if you think the problem is in read file, you're correct. You're correct. And if you think this problem can be solved by using read streams, then you are partially correct. Okay, the reason why I say you're partially correct is because read streams will generate chunks of data. This chunk could be literally anything that fits the 4 KB space. What I want on this huge data JSON is each entry separately. So I can iterate over it, I can debug it, I can perform my validation. I don't want a chunk. I don't want simply one bit of data, one entry at a time. And this is where iterators shine. Towards the end, we'll see a very simple example demonstrating the solution to this problem. But first, let's get back. Hey folks, this is Hamdan Ali, and today, allow me to walk you through iterators and generators in JavaScript. Okay, I am an Auth0 ambassador where I'm vocal about authorization, authentication, and identity security. I am also a Postman student leader. I am the author of this course here at Mon School, and I'm also an author at Free Code Camp. You can check out my work at the links provided towards the end. I am also the winner of Smart India Hackathon 2022, where we built an iris-based authentication and authorization service for Manrega workers. I am also building Boost, where you could increase your credit score, your civil score, simply by paying rents on time. No EMIs, no loans. If you're curious about any of these things, I'd love to talk. Let's connect. I'd love to talk. All right. Now, to address the high note where we ended our example, to address the problem, why you should care about these iterators, why you should care about learning this course, why you should enroll. Well, for starters, iterators let you iterate through collections content one at a time, pausing at each item. That is really cool in JavaScript. And iterators are the go-to solution for large databases. We'll see a solution to the problem we have introduced towards the end once we've discussed all of these concepts. And iterators use lazy evaluation to reduce the cost of calculation in your applications. You'll appreciate this fact more once you get your hands dirty with the course. Right now, let's try to understand each of these concepts one by one. But before that, allow me to introduce what this course offers to you, what this course has in store for you. So we'll see what are iterators and what are iterables. We'll see what the iterative protocol is. We'll see what the iterable protocol is. And we'll understand the differences between iterables and enumerables. Well, there's a catch when I say iterables versus enumerables. It's not something iterables versus enumerables. And you should definitely catch this in the course. I'll see you there. Okay, next we'll learn about custom iterators, what they are, why are they useful, and how do you create one. While we are at it, we'll also see that iterators, functions, properties aren't the only thing you can iterate over. And then we'll wrap up this course with a deep dive in generator functions. We'll understand what our generator functions are, we'll understand what the yield keyword is, we'll understand what the throw keyword is, and we'll understand what yield delegation it is and how it works. Now, I'd really encourage you to follow along with each exercise at this point of the course. Feel free to speed up or slow down the playback speed to ensure you're catching up with the follow along examples. At the end of each module or chapter, you'll have a checkpoint exercise that you must complete on your own. You can find the answers and the JSON data required to complete these checkpoint exercises in the GitHub link mentioned in the comments. So you'll find the link to the GitHub repository in the comments, in the chat box, or in the description to this video course. And you should definitely check that out. You should definitely follow along at each point in this course. That will really get your hands dirty and help you learn. Okay, I really want to make you comfortable at this point with iterators. So allow me to ask this. Have you used any of these constructs or data structures in JavaScript? A string or an array or a map or a set or segments. Have you used any of these before? You can drop a yes on the chat box, or if you have, if you have used these constructs or data structures, then voila, you have already used built-in iterables. So by the end of this course, you'll be able to create custom iterators at the same level, but this time you'll be iterating over your own custom data. They are these constructs, strings, arrays, maps, or sets, or segments. They're iterables because they follow the iterable protocol. Let me show you an example. All right. So let's try to create an array over here. And this array will contain, yeah, cool, three elements, which is 1, 2, and 3. Now, if I try to view the contents of this array or the prototype chain of this array, so if I try to view this array, you'll see a prototype over here. This is the prototype chain. This is how inheritance works in JavaScript. And if you want to learn more about JavaScript inheritance, you should definitely check out my course on prototype pollution in JavaScript. Links in the comments, by the way. So you'll find what inheritance is, what the inheritance model is. And when you scroll down and down this inheritance in this prototype chain, you'll find something called a symbol.iterator. So, so um, an array is iterable because it follows a iterable protocol, because the symbol.iterator is defined in this prototype chain, in this array class, which is the base class for all arrays defined in JavaScript. Before I make you understand what an iterable protocol is, we should first understand what an iterator protocol is, and then we'll move to what an iterable protocol is. All right, back to our examples. In this example number 2, we have a function called an iterator function. We're trying to create a basic iterator. And what we'll do next is we'll see how do I create an iterator. So if I go back over here, we'll see that these iterator protocols are essentially just rules that define how an iterator should look like. They're protocols, they're just rules. It is this iterator protocol that says that for any object to be iterable, it must implement the next method, which should return a done property and a value property. This done property is having a Boolean value by default, and this value could literally be anything. It also talks about optional return and throw values. Well, let's see that in an example. So what we'll do next is the iterator protocol says we must return the next method. So let's do that. Done. Now the iterator protocol says that the next method should return an object, and that object should contain two properties, which is a value property and a done property. Let's do that. So the main goal of this iterator is we want to generate the first 10 real numbers. And we have start and a finish over here. The start is initialized to the index, and we have a count so that we can keep track of everything of the finished values. So let's initialize a variable called result. Cool, done. Now, if index is less than finished value, which basically means that our iteration is not complete, we'll assign an object to this result value. And if you guess this object will contain two properties, done and value, you are correct. So this will contain a value property. This value property can literally contain anything, any type of data type. So it's right now we want to return a value, which is the index value. And the done property will contain a Boolean value. Right now it is false. And then we'll just increment the index by 1 and increment the count by 1. We'll then return the result, this object. And if not, if the index value is greater than finish, we'll simply return another object where the value is that of count, because this time we have completed our iteration. Okay, this should be returned. And the done property will contain true this time. I think by intuitively, you must have understood what this done does by now. So this done is saying whether or not we have completely iterated over our custom iterator that we are writing. All right. Now let's try to consume this iterator. We're done. We're done. Our basic iterator is complete. Once we try to iterate over this custom iterator, we'll need to initialize this to a variable, and then we'll use a next method. It is this next method that allows consuming one item at a time. Remember, we said you have the freedom to consume one item at a time. Remember that iterators are lazy by default. What I mean is, every time you request a new item, every time you request a new item, the iterator will calculate it then and there itself, and then return the value. This is called lazy iterator. This is called lazy evaluation, which is great for reducing the cost of operation when doing more complicated tasks. All right, now let's try to run this code. And we see we get the first 10 whole numbers. Cool, this basic iterator works. Okay, this is a catch. While this is perfectly correct by definition, we have implemented the next method, we have implemented the value property and the done property. We have created an iterator, not an iterable. This is not the same as saying arrays or strings. They're not on the same level. What we need to do is we need to create an iterable. What I mean is you cannot use a for of loop in this. If you try to use that, you'll say iterator, which is this, is not an iterable object. Why is that? Why is that so? So that brings us to our next topic, which is iterables and the iterable protocol. Okay, using the iterable protocol, you can customize what you get when you iterate over your array or string. Let me repeat that again. You can customize the behavior of your iterator. You can customize what you get when you iterate over it. You can define your own custom iteration behavior. Using the iterable protocol, you can also make objects iterable. This is something that we have done in the course, so you should definitely check it out. Objects by default is not iterable. You cannot iterate over objects. Try using a for of loop in an object and you'll see an error. Why is that so? It's because it's not iterable. And in this course, we have an example where we try to make our objects iterable by defining our own custom logic. You should definitely check that out. Okay, so the iterable protocol says for an object to be iterable, it must implement the iterator method. This is called a well-known symbol in JavaScript, @iterator. And this, okay, what I mean right now is this means that the object must have a property with this @iterator key in this. And this @iterator is available via a constant symbol iterator. This is a constant in JavaScript. And we'll be using this constant in this example to show how do I make this function an iterable function. So back to our examples again. This time we'll see example number 3. Is the same old thing. Is the same thing. The same function, the iterator function, generates the first 10 whole numbers. But this time you'll see all of this code is exactly the same that we had over here. But this time around, we have a constant. This is called symbol.iterator. And we are wrapping it up. The symbol.iterator returning something, returning the old thing. We are essentially adding an extra layer of abstraction. This is the extra layer of abstraction. The extra layer with the symbol iterator is necessary to adhere to the iterator protocol in JavaScript. Okay, to recap, in JavaScript, to make an iterable object, an object must have a method with the key symbol.iterator in it. And that method should in turn return an iterator object. Listen along as I speak. In JavaScript, for an object to be iterable, it must implement the symbol.iterator key. And that object must in turn return a next method. And this next method must in turn contain a value in a done property. The iterator object, now, this is an iterator object. The structure allows the object to use some of the well-known JavaScript constructs, such as the for-of loops or the destructuring or spread operator. It is this that you can use these operators on those arrays or strings. All right. So if I try to use a for-of loop this time, I'm not using a while loop this time around. I'm not using a while loop this time around. I'm using a for-of loop because I know that this time this function is iterable. So if I try to run that, I see it works. It works. I see the first 9 whole numbers and it's working in using a for of loop. As compared to this example, if I use a for of loop over here, you remember what happened? The function is not iterable by default. All right, that's the need of adhering to the iterable protocol. So another example, if I try to use the spread operator and again run this code, you'll see that the spread operator works. It is because we are using a iterable protocol. We have tons of cool example in the course where you will be creating a custom logger from scratch. That's a real world utility example. And you should definitely check that out. All right, now that is done, now that that is done, let's take a sneak peek to generator functions. I'll simply skim through what it is right now. You should definitely check out this in the course for great detail. Make sure you've understood iterators before jumping to generators. That is really important. But if I'm allowed to say some things about iterators, I'll say this. So generator functions are simply functions that can be exited and re-entered at a later time, while also having the ability to pass values to and from functions at each of these exits. Whenever you exit, you can pass values to or from. This is called yielding. You'll see that what it is. You'll see what it is. Okay, if you don't need the rest of the function to execute, you can simply exit at any point. This is something new. Since whatever we have learned by now in our knowledge, we know that functions always run to completion, right? Well, generator functions don't need to. If you don't need that part of the code, you can simply exit. All right. So if I'm allowed to show an example, and I really don't expect you to put a lot of stress on this example. I really don't expect you to understand at this point, but you should really appreciate how this this whole chunky piece of heavy code has been converted to this few lines of code. They both of them do the same job. They do the same job. They generate the first 10 real numbers, but look how clean, how small, how short this code is. It's more maintainable and testable now. And that is something you should do as efficient developers. You should write efficient code. And that is why you should learn generators. There are some key concepts of yielding and yield delegation and throw that you should definitely get your hands dirty on, and you'll only learn by example. You should definitely check that out in the course. Try tweaking it yourself. Try experimenting a few things yourself. If I am allowed to give some things up, a few hints, this is a special keyword. This is a special character that makes this function a generator function. And if I try to run this code, it'll again generate me the first 10 whole numbers, but in a more efficient manner now. Okay, now let's move to the solution of the first problem we discussed. Remember the first problem? For our new viewers, I'll quickly skim through the code again. Uh, our problem was we were trying to parse a huge data.json file, and we ran into an error which said range error. Now, I want to iterate a chunk of, not a chunk, but a unit of this data. I'll quickly show what the unit was. I want to process each data at a time so I can perform my operations on each unit. So I wanted a more efficient solution. Now, this time around, I can create I can create a generator function for the same thing. Again, for our viewers who said if you use read streams, you can solve this problem. Yes, you are partially correct, but a read stream will generate chunks, and I don't really want a chunk. I want my own unit. So I have defined a custom iterator. I have defined a custom generator that defines my own custom unit. And so I've used uh, create line iterator. And this create line iterator is using a stream, correct? But this time around, I have a custom logic over it, how to iterate over it. I've defined it custom. And now if I try to run this code, you'll see the difference. Now if I try to run this code, you'll see that each item is being processed individually. I had an intentional delay over here so that you can appreciate the fact that each item is being processed individually and at a time. Look how that works. This is the power of iterators and generator functions that I have tried to highlight in this course, and it's very hands-on. It's very hands-on. And that, folks, is how you should be parsing over huge or endless data using iterators and generator functions. All right, folks, that's a wrap for now. For now, but there are a ton of interesting concepts and exercises in the course. By the end of this course, you'll be able to create custom iterators, make objects iterable, add new iterable behavior to arrays, understand what the symbol iterator means and what the next method means, what the throw method means. You'll also learn the difference between the for off loop and a for in loop. You'll understand what's the nuance between an iterable object and an enumerable property. That is something every developer should know. So you'll be creating a very real world utility logger that is really helpful. And you should check that out. You'll be creating a real world utility logger, and you'll learn the concepts of yielding, throw, and why yield delegation is useful. Okay, you can follow me on Twitter. My handles it's Violent Black Eye, and on GitHub it's Hamdan Ali Katil. Drop me a hi. I'd love to hear back from you. This was Hamdan Ali. See you back. See you folks soon. This is a wrap. The link for the course is available in the chat box in the live chat. You can check that out here now. Ansh, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Amdan. Thanks for joining, and it was a great session. And yeah, folks, if you liked what we talked about, make sure to sign up for the course. And yeah, we'll see you at Mon School.
Great. Thanks all.